session 25. I am Sanem, and today I'll be your moderator for today's session. And it is a pleasure to see you all, and we are glad to have you here for today's session. Firstly, it's an honor to welcome our dearest speaker, Professor Dr. Özkan Kırmızı from Karabük University. Özkan, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Professor Dr. Özkan Kırmızı works as a professor at the English Language and Literature Department of Karabük University, Turkey. He completed his PhD at Hacettepe University ELT Department. His research interests include L2 teacher education, pedagogical content knowledge, practicum experience, psychology of language learning and teaching, and teacher psychology. Dr. Kırmızı has edited 2 books published by international publishing houses, Situated Nature of EFL Teacher Psychology, Insights from Turkey, and Positive Psychology Components in Language Learning and Teaching in the Turkish Context. We are grateful to have you with us. Thank you, Özkan Hocam. Once again, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for this very nice introduction. Am I audible? Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So let's go ahead. I want to share my screen. Someone is listening to the news. Okay. Yes, dear participants, today I want to talk about replication research, raise some awareness about replication research, and try to guide researchers, especially early career researchers, in terms of finding ideas and in terms of advancing their research skills. When this call or when this offer was made to me, I thought that I can talk on such a topic. So this is the title of my presentation, and this is the flow of the presentation. First, I will give a short definition of replication. Then we are going to talk about replication types. We have 4. And then we are going to talk about frequency of replication studies and to what extent they confirm the original findings and the naming issues, etc. And then I am going to touch upon replication calls, which are published in the journal Language Teaching, and what ideas we can derive from them. I'll be able to show 2 examples here, but the others are also available. I will show them. Let's first of all take a look at the definition of replication, dear friends. I know there is some kind of hesitancy towards replication research among scholars. This is because most scholars are not very much aware of what a replication study is. This idea was also underlined by some other researchers who worked on replication, and they found that the reluctance on the part of professors and scholars is a problem or an issue in front of, or a barrier in front of the acceptance of replication research. Actually, the thing is just the other way around. So let's see what a replication study is. A replication is defined as conducting a research study again in a way that is either identical to the original procedure or with some changes. These changes could be small, major, we will see. To test the original findings. This is one of the aims of replication, actually, to test the original findings. The aim could be different. We will see. We will talk about them. The term, dear participants, initial study or original study. This distinction is very important. Most researchers, most replication-wise researchers, tend to use the term initial study, not the original study. This is because the initial study starts a movement or a wave, and based on it, replications go on, and some scientific truths or some scientific generalizations or maybe some theories are built based on this flow. Okay, so what kind of replication studies do we have? We have four types: exact, close or partial, approximate replication, and conceptual replication studies, dear participants. The first one is exact replication. In this kind of a replication, you strictly follow the entire procedure as it is in the initial study. Uh, this is almost impossible in our field because we have human factor in our field. So I skip that quickly. This is an unachievable objective. Even one of the stern supporters of replication research, Graeme Porter and Kevin McManus, they say that this is an unachievable objective. So no need to talk about it. By the way, I can talk about these two important figures. Graeme Porter is the editor of the journal Language Teaching, and Kevin McManus is a very important figure who conducts research on replication and who tries to foreground replication as an important research type. Okay, the second type, close replication. Here, dear friends, dear participants, we make only one major change in the variables. One major variable is changed. This could be the type of instruction you are providing, the outcome measure could be different, or the L1 background of the participants could be changed. And the aim is to see how manipulating the variable influences the outcomes of the initial study. According to most scholars, that type of replication is the most achievable and the clearest way to advance knowledge. The most achievable and the clearest, the most important way of advancing knowledge. This is, for example, an example of close replication study, as you can see. And we have the title, a close replication. We have the label, a close replication in the title. This study was published in 2020, and it was published by Kevin, as I mentioned, one of the most important supporters of replication research and another researcher. And the approximate replication we have, it's quite similar to close replication, but here we have more room for modifications. Two variables are changed here. And the more changes we make, the more difficult comparisons become. We accept that. But still, it works. And we are going to see that approximate replication is very common among the replication studies I analyzed. This is an example of an approximate replication study, as you can see in the journal Language Teaching again, published in 2015. It has the label an approximate replication in the title. It's always a good idea to have what type of replication it is or whether or not the study is a replication study in the title, because readers are going to read it with this lens or this eye. And the next one, or the fourth one, conceptual replication. In conceptual replication, almost all aspects of the initial study are different or are changed. But the thing is, we ask the same research questions, the same general research questions, but our methodology may be different. Our procedures may be different, but we stick to the same general question. Of course, generalizability is a little lower here, and it's difficult to compare with the previous study because many variables have been changed. But the thing with replication, conceptual replication, is this: you can open up new venues of research. Starting from the initial study, you can come up with new ideas of research. So in that regard, conceptual replication studies are also important. This is an example of conceptual replication study, as you can see, published in the journal Language Learning in 2019 by some prominent researchers in our field, Believer and Al-Houri. By the way, I interviewed with Dr. Al-Houri in terms of replication research. I will mention their ideas as the time comes. What do we expect from replication? Direct or exact replications aim to ensure reproducibility and conceptual replications aim for generalizability. How about the current status of replication research, dear participants? How many of us are doing replication research, or how many scholars are um, pursuing this ideal, or how many scholars are encouraging their postgraduate students to conduct replication studies? By the way, I was very curious about this replication issue, and I interviewed around 20 uh, figures, scholars, in terms of their ideas here. Um, for example, I interviewed with Dr. Port, McManus, and some other important figures we will see. Uh, Most of the professors stated that they use replication research in postgraduate education as a venue, as an opening for the research practices of early career researchers. Because um, we have an initial study attempt, and students can follow the same procedure there. They are comfortable because they have the procedure ready-made, and they learn a lot of things. We conducted one replication study. I know how it feels. You you feel comfortable, okay, and you feel at ease as you are conducting this study because you have the initial study there as a guide for you. So in our context here in Turkey, we are not using replication in postgraduate education. Just the other way around. When we say replication, most of the scholars frown upon the idea. But as I said, this is because they are not mostly aware of what a replication study is. Okay, the current status of replication, as you can see, it's not receiving the due attention, but the attention is increasing, we will see. Only 7% of studies published in language teaching research were replication studies. Marston et al. Published a seminal work on replication. It's very detailed. I strongly suggest you to read this article. I will show it. And they also reported similar findings. One explanation for this is that mostly scholars are after originality rather than building theories or accumulating, amassing knowledge. And replication studies are to challenge or this mostly learners have misconception that replication studies are to challenge or discard the original findings. Actually, this is not the case. Most of the time, we try to corroborate the initial findings. Promotional attempts for replication studies. The journal Recall published a replication special issue in 2023. Studies in Second Language Acquisition is about to publish a replication issue. We had a very unfortunate experience here when they made the call for this issue, for the replication issue. We 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 submitted a proposal with some colleagues from METU, and it was accepted, and we started our study. But unfortunately, during the study, one of the colleagues changed his or her position, and we had to stop the study. Um, the IRIS repository, we have database. This is a database where researchers can access research tools used by other researchers. And we have open science framework. You can go there and see what tools other researchers have used in their studies, like tests or surveys or interview questions, whatever. And we have a term like pre-registration. I don't know if all journals are doing this, but some journals are doing that. You can pre-register your study beforehand so that you can announce the audience that you are conducting the study already. That's a good opportunity for people and for you to share your research and your ideas. So why are we bothering with all these research-wise issues, dear participants? Because we are going through a methodological turn in our field in SLA studies or applied linguistic studies. That started in at the beginning of the 210s. In 2013, for example, Barnes came up with the term methodological turn, and Plonsky, the editor of Studies in Second Language Acquisition, a very influential figure in that regard, wrote about terms like study rigor, study quality, and many other publications, he has in this regard. I would strongly suggest you to read his publications in terms of research. He has certain books in that regard. And Guess and her team, are also working on this. And they published this article, The Past, Present, and Future of Quantitative SLA Research. This is also a very nice publication. I would strongly suggest you to read it. They say that we are reaching a maturity level and we need more replication studies. So, previous work on replication, as I mentioned, Marston et al. Conducted a study in our field, and they found 67 self-labeled SLA replication studies in 26 journals, and they underlined a severe lack of replication research in our field. And only one study out of 400 articles was replication. And similar attempts were made in education field and other fields as well. As you can see, they also mention a lack of attention to replication research. This is the study I mentioned, Marston et al. If you are developing an interest in replication research, you should definitely read this article. And how do we justify replication studies? Karl Popper, the German philosopher and scholar, says that science without replication is nothing more than the fruitless cataloging of occult effects. So we need to replicate our findings. Study quality was another term, and generalizability, methodological rigor were some other terms that were foregrounded by significant researchers in our field. And another reason is this, replication studies have a lot of confirmatory power. Um, so we can go for replication. And replication studies has the potential to correct type 2 errors. I'm sure you are familiar with type 1 and type 2 errors. In type 2 error, there is a relation, but your findings do not point it out. It may be hard to understand, but during the COVID, some examples emerged. For example, you have COVID, but you go to the doctor and you test negative. This is like a type 2 error. Type 1 error is just the other way around. You don't have COVID, you go to the doctor, hospital, and you test positive. Remember, we had a lot of cases like that. And replication is good for external validity. External validity is, as you know, about generalizability of your findings. Educational relevance, the more confirmed your findings are, the better it is for educational relevance here. And replication studies tend to receive more citations. Okay, let's take a look at the numbers and the status of replication studies over the last 13 years. Starting from 2010, as you can see, we have a slight increase, then some decline, and then a sharp increase here. I couldn't include some of the most recent replication studies. That's why we have a falling line in 2024, but it is going either flat or it's going to increase. From 2010 to 2023, I found 78 replication studies, by the way. And mostly they were approximate replication studies. 4 of them were approximate replication studies, and conceptual replications were also common, as you can see. And I identified some interesting terms here, like conceptual replication and extension, conceptual replication and meta-analysis, or multi-site replication. I will try to explain them very quickly. Conceptual replication and extension. This means that I use the original findings, I test them, and I extend them over some other variables. This is the extension part. Conceptual replication and meta-analysis. I'm not sure whether you all are familiar with the term meta-analysis or not. A meta-analysis study collects all the studies conducted on a topic and analyzes their findings and comes up with very general outcomes or results, let me say. For example, on language learning motivation, let's say this is the topic, and researchers collect all the articles published in that regard and they analyze their findings again and again, and they come up with general findings. So meta-analysis studies are also highly valuable. Site replication studies, dear friends. I will show an example of this below. An initial study is replicated in different contexts. In the example, there is only one example. The researchers did something creative. They replicated the initial study in 3 different contexts. One was Poland, the other was the United States. I don't remember the third one. And next, we have partial replication and extension. Qualitative replication, that's important. There is some discussion going on in terms of qualitative replication. We will see it down there. And there was one direct replication. It was very recent. It was like a survey replication study. And some other types, they are self-mentioned this way. So labeling is important in terms of replication studies, dear friends. 51 of the studies self-identified themselves as replication studies. 27 didn't identify themselves as replication in their titles. My suggestion is to include the label in the title so that readers will read it with that perspective. It's very important. And authorship, different authors replicated 55 of the studies. Partially different authors replicated 14 studies. This works like that. For example, me and Gözde Hoca, we write an article, then I replicate this article with another colleague of mine. That's partially different author. And the same author, 9 of the studies, authors replicated their own studies. And areas and topics that were studied in replication studies, vocabulary comes first. Learning, teaching, and testing grammar was the second. Affective factors turned out to be the third most studied factor in replication studies. Then comes errors, processing, etc. And the others were only represented once in replication studies, as you can see, spoken comprehension or scale development, etc. And how do researchers ground their replications? If you are doing replication, you need to ground yourself, your study. Why are you replicating it? Mostly, importance of topic was cited as the reason for replication. The second one was to expand the existing literature, and some others mention methodological flaws in the initial study. But this is not in the negative way. For example, I read an article yesterday, and there the writer of the replication call says that the initial study was very well designed um, and had a creative design, all was perfect. But after this study was conducted, some new approaches emerged to test grammar and to test the language focus there. So this was one of the reasons suggested for a replication of the initial study. And where do most of the replication studies come from? Studies in second language acquisition and language learning are in the lead, and language teaching has 8 replication studies. And Recall had 6 replication studies because they published that special issue. And sources of initial studies mostly come from different journals, and 19 of them came from the same journal. Some of them didn't mention. And we have book chapters replicated, by the way, uh, 2 studies were replication book chapters, and 2 studies replicated 2 articles. Okay, How about the findings? 26 of them partially confirmed the original findings, but the 38 of them confirmed and extended the original findings. 16 of them didn't confirm the original findings, and 15 of them only confirmed the original findings. So let's come to the origin replication calls. We have 15 minutes. Okay, we are going fine. The journal Language Teaching, dear friends, publishes replication calls. What do they do in a replication call? Writers, this is an example, for example, writers find two important studies that could be replicated, and they give their reasons for the replication of these studies. I mean, why these studies should be replicated. And plus, they offer ideas on how these original studies could be replicated. So actually, we have some ready-made ideas in these replication calls. And we have around 22 or 23 replication calls, all published in this journal. You can check language teaching replication section, and you can download these articles. We will focus two of them here. And okay, let's take a look at them, dear friends. Which topics are covered in replication calls? The most commonly found topic is vocabulary knowledge. 6 times it was suggested for replication. I mean, vocabulary-related studies were suggested for replication. Genre analysis, feedback, working memory, grammar learning, and computer-assisted language learning, etc., were among the topics that includes replication ideas. Reasons for replications suggested in replication calls. Okay, authors suggest a replication of some initial studies, but what are their reasons? Number one comes importance of topic. Important findings is number two. Methodological rigor is number three. Citation rates. You can say that that study is highly cited, so I will try to replicate it. And methodological flaws were mentioned 9 times, and generalizability efforts was mentioned 8 times, as you can see. And among these replication calls, the most common or the most frequently foregrounded replication type is approximate replications. The number is 130, and conceptual replications were 40. Okay, this is a list of the replication calls which were published in language teaching, sorry. The first one starts in 2014, as you can see, replication research in comparative genre analysis. In that article, you are going to find at least 3 or 4 research ideas. Another one is 2015, dear friends, on written corrective feedback in L2 writing. The next one is interaction and working memory. Another one is qualitative research, replication in qualitative research. There was a call here. Actually, the writer Numa Marki calls it comparative reproduction because there's an argument here. Most authors, okay, they agree that replication fits well for quantitative research, but they have doubts about qualitative replication. We will see. Vocabulary, as you can see. Pedagogical approaches to formulaic expressions, and computer-assisted language learning in 2017, as you can see. And these are some other replication calls, dear friends. Now let's see what we mean by these replication calls. Okay, look at this one, for example. Examining second language vocabulary growth. Replications of Schmidt and Webb and Cheng. In this article, Anna says that you can replicate these two initial studies. Why and how? First, why? Because uh, the paucity of longitudinal vocabulary research, one reason for that suggestion, and the first one, to examine how a wider range of word knowledge components of the same words develop over time, is the second reason for replication. And this is the uh, these are the components of the research design of the original study. Now let's see what the ideas are, dear friends. As you can see, these are all replication ideas sketched by um, the writer of this article, I mean, Anna. Suggested change, replication type, and type of change. For example, the author says that you can change the data collection from a larger homogeneous group. In a replication study, you can follow the same procedure, but you can collect your data from a larger or homogeneous group. Or several modifications could be done in the assessment methods. Or you could involve a second rater, or you could include a more structured interview. As you can see, with one change, you are going to idea. Another idea says that you can add learner's diary to get a better picture. How many replication ideas do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe. This means that we have 8 research ideas here. And for the other study, we have again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 replication ideas, as you can see. The author says that you can, the first modification could be to conduct the study in an EFL context, for example. That's a good reason. Another modification could be to use a questionnaire. Okay. I guess you can follow me and you can see what I'm talking about, right, dear participants? These are all the replication ideas presented in this article. Um, another change, another modification idea is this. A language exposure questionnaire could be administered, for example, or uh, the vocabulary measures could be changed. These are all very good ideas. Another replication call is this one, word knowledge, learning and acquisition in a second language. Uh, Proposed replications of Algert and Kia and Forster, as you can see. This call was published in 2019. Let's see what are the ideas here. For example, the reasons for replication are given this way. It was the first study to use form priming as a research methodology, and the findings are important. So that's why that study, Algert's study, could be replicated. And these are the ideas. There's an interesting idea here. A replication could be using or including learners whose L1 is not alphabetic, such as Chinese, for example. An interesting idea. And testing lexicalization could be changed. A different method could be used to test the lexical items there. And the other study, a relatively more recent study, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 ideas here. The author says that the findings could be tested with ESL Chinese university students, or it could be conducted with EFL speakers with an alphabetic language, or um, the researchers could include eye movements or eye tracking methodology in the replication idea. And some other replication calls, I will just show them this way to give you an idea. In this call, for example, Helen Baştürkmen makes a call to replicate genre analysis replications. Here, Dana proposes a replication of Connors, Lanford, and Lanford, and Leland does studies. in all these studies, you will find, again, replication suggestions like the ones I mentioned up there. That's another one published in 2015, as you can see, on working memory. That's another one, as I said, on qualitative research. There's some controversy here. Are replication studies possible in qualitative research? Markey makes a call for comparative reproduction. I will see there are some two counter arguments there. I will show them down. This is another call for replication. That's another call on computer-assisted language learning. That's another one published in 2020, as you can see. Yet another one, learner attitudes and attention to forming peer interaction, for example. So, some fundamental questions. Can a questionnaire study be replicated? Yes, there's an example of this published in 2020. Is it possible to replicate two related studies? Yes, it is. As I mentioned up there, Daniel and Lee replicated two studies. Can a thesis be replicated? Of course, why not? Daniel and Lee's study replicated a thesis. Have any book chapters been replicated? Yes, I found two in my corpus, so they could be replicated. This is the example for questionnaire replication study, dear friends. It replicate qualitative studies, but some other researchers have counter arguments. Okay, for example, here, this researcher says that uh, replication in qualitative research is not a good option because there are too many contextual factors in qualitative research. I read this article. The author agrees that replication is a very good idea for quantitative research, but not for qualitative research. So, summary. Seems that we are reaching some kind of maturity, methodological maturity in our field. There's an emergence of qualitative replication studies, although still limited. Replication is on the increase. That's good news. And replication and expansion type of studies are on the increase. This is also good news. Vocabulary was the leading topic in replication studies. Close and approximate replication studies are common. And the most common reasons why authors replicated initial studies is to confirm original studies, to reconsider methodological problems, and the powerful design of initial studies. Plus, questionable or interesting findings also were some important drives for replication studies. Newly emerging trends and promising replication types, as I mentioned. Multi-site replication was a good idea. The authors replicated the initial study in uh, it was seven different sites. This is the page of the article, multi-site replication. And some suggested publications. This book is very nice, written by Graeme Forte and Kevin McManus. These two figures are the most important supporters of proponents of research. And this is also a very nice and a very recent article written by Kevin again, Dr. Kevin again. Dr. Kevin presents a framework here, actually. This provides a very nice and easy to follow guide for a replication study, because in a replication study, you there are things that you're supposed to do. For example, you need to ground your selection of the initial study, and you need to state why you are replicating that study, and then you need to go, will you share the initial findings and your findings, and how will you discuss them? In that article, okay, I was disconnected. Since how long?
Yes, hocam. For
How
a few
long?
seconds, yes, hocam.
Okay, no problem. So, I am on time, I guess. Thank you very much for listening. I will try to answer the questions as far as I can. As I
Hocam,
say, replications are very nice ideas for early career researchers to build their confidence, for them to learn the research procedure and many other things. Most of the most of the scholars I interviewed stated that they use replication as an instructional strategy in their postgraduate education. And I thought to myself, this is not something we do in Turkey. Actually, supervisors should be well aware of this instructional value of replication research. Of course, it requires some time and some expertise maybe to find a study to replicate, but students can do this with their supervisors perfectly well. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much. Any questions, any suggestions, ideas?
Hocam, we would like to sincerely thank you for this wonderful talk. It was a pleasure to listen to. As you said, we can move on to the Q&A session.
May I
Yeah.
ask a question?
Yes, please.
So, why do you think vocabulary was the most popular topic on replications? So you mentioned a few reasons for that, the importance of the topic, the limited literacy. So why do you think researchers paid more attention to vocabulary on replications?
Well, there may be several reasons for that. Maybe there is more research on vocabulary in the literature. This could be one reason. Or there could be more replicable studies in vocabulary. This could be another reason. Another issue is this. For example, coded studies that directly focus on vocabulary and maybe subcomponents, also vocabulary. Did it get your attention? Some studies are learning of formulaic expressions or fixed phrases. I also coded them as vocabulary. Maybe this is the reason, but still we have a dominance of vocabulary in the literature.
So they might have combined vocabulary with some other topic and called it still vocabulary.
Yeah, but yeah, of course, subtopics under vocabulary, let's say.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. For those who are interested, I will strongly suggest you to go to the journal, Language Teaching, and take a look at the replication section. At every issue, they publish either a replication study or a replication call. And there are many ideas. I make a call to supervisors here. I don't know if there are supervisors here, but it's a treasure. There's a treasure out there.
Hocam, now maybe we can take a photo to mark the end of the session.
Okay. Beanie Chap here, handsome.
One, two, three. Okay. Thank you hocam.
Yeah.
I guess our session has come to an end, and thank you all for being here with us today. We look forward to seeing you at the next session. Take care and stay safe.
Okay, it was great. Thank you very much. I thank the organizing committee. They are really very helpful, and everybody for listening to us. Thanks a lot.